she said.
If only that were the case for this particular thing. So, welcome back to another edition of Inside BBI. And if you're sticking with us through this season, I am proud of you and us. I'm John McDevitt. With me, as always, senior editor of Big Blue Interactive, Mr. Eric Kennedy. Eric, it's a Saturday morning. I'm only having water, dude.
Me too.
My wife was like, do you really want to do a drink every time you do a show? I go, I think it's sending the wrong message. I'm like, because really don't drink that often. So that being said, here we are. We're back again. This season did not go the way we wanted it or thought it would. Depending on how you wanted to look at it, I want to actually talk about part of that for me. But here we are. Giants are about to play the Lions. The big story all week long was Jaxson Dart. Would he be cleared? Was he not cleared? He started to practice. So you and I were just talking about, so let's take that conversation back and kind of start from the beginning for everybody else. I'm happy the Giants are not playing Dart. And there was a lot of discussion on BBI, bigblueinteractive.com, about, it's all about the doctors, And it does sound now like maybe the Giants are kind of playing it safe and he might have been cleared. Your thoughts on what we've heard?
Well, it certainly may be what they're saying it originally was, and that the doctors haven't cleared him, and therefore it's out of the coaches and organization's hands. That's what they said, and that's what they are standing by. But then Jordan Renan comes out last night and says he didn't suffer any setbacks. They just want to play it safe, which is what I suspected, and which I think you and I would have done anyways.
Yes.
It's like, just give him another week. Don't even risk that. And I know there are going to be people out there that say, if you're cleared, you're cleared. The professionals know what they're doing. I don't buy that at all. The professionals screwed this up during the game. You talked about it on one of the previous podcasts. They played it overly safe in the preseason and early in the season when he clearly wasn't hurt, but his head hit the ground and they put him in the concussion tent, but there was nothing wrong. But in the time that in the actual game that he got dinged so bad he looked stunned and was laying on the ground, they not only didn't test him, but they let him come back into the game and then realized there's something going on. They probably were, talking to him through the headset and realized, hey, he's not all there. So the NFL screwed that up. They have these independent observers, and the Giants doctors screwed that up. And I suspect there's a little bit of guilt there too. So, and long story short, it's the right thing to do. They're not going to win this week. If there's no sense of exposing him to a pissed off Detroit Lions top 5 defense right now and endangering him. And when you do have a concussion, you and I have seen this, when you do have a concussion, you are susceptible to having another one before your brain basically heals. And so I think this is the right thing to do.
It's really funny. The NFL really needs to look at this, right? I've seen a couple of games where a guy gets up and they're ready for the next play, and all of a sudden the ref stops the play, goes over, gets the guy, and makes him go out. And the guy's like, what's the deal here?
Which is what happened at that. I'm sorry to interrupt. Which is what happened with Jaxson a couple times already.
Yeah. But here's this particular play though. So if you're a boxing fan, think of it this way: Jaxson Dart went down and didn't move in such a way that generally refs don't even count to 10. The fight's over. Like, he doesn't move. If it's MMA, when that dude goes down and he's not even moving, it's over.
They go like,
Jaxson Dart will look like he was taking a nap when he was on the field. Everybody's milling around for the ball. He didn't even try to pick it up. He wasn't trying to get up. I don't know how you don't even get checked. Like, how does that not warrant go? And it's not like the next play was happening and they had to think about it. He's on the sidelines. How does the Giants doctors not come over? So anyway, I know we're past that.
Well, it's worth mentioning, and it's not getting enough attention. Again, this is another indication that the professionals aren't really. We shouldn't give them the benefit of the doubt. The league and the Giants in this. That was a horrible look. People have moved past it. They shouldn't have moved past it. Like you said, what the hell? Why is it one way, extreme one way, but in the case where, anyways, long story short, he shouldn't be playing. I'm glad he isn't. If the doctors did say he shouldn't be playing, good. He needs another week. Give him another week. I wouldn't be upset if they gave him through the bye, but I suspect he'll be playing next week against the Patriots. But I wouldn't be upset if they just really, really played it safe at this point. Look, I want him to get the experience too. I don't agree with those who are saying don't let him play another down this year. I wouldn't go that extreme. He needs to get some. These games do help him, even if they're going to lose these games. They do help him. So, but I wouldn't be upset if they gave him to the bye.
Yeah, it's really it's a fine line to walk, right?
Yeah.
The season's over. Like, I mean, I realize that it's not mathematically over. It's over.
It's over.
You go through, let's say this week you're playing a team that need, and we'll talk about it a little bit more in a minute. They need the win. They're in a division. They're in a tough division. They lost a game they probably shouldn't have. There's a lot of questions on the way they called that game, taking chances when they probably didn't need to. There was also a really bad call on them late in the game. I mean, there's a lot of shit, but they need this game. They are also a much better team than the Giants. They are a healthier team than the Giants. They are offensively, they are going to cause a defense that has been, to say suspect would be, I'd be generous to say it's suspect. I mean, literally, when the Giants take the field, you might as well spot the other team some points right away, knowing your defense is playing in this game. So they're really amped up. The following week, you've got another team that is turned its entire franchise back around. This is a team that had a legacy of dominance under Bill Belichick. Fell apart when Brady left, Belichick leaves. They have turned it around very quickly. They are really the model the Giants might want to look at, as they got their quarterback and fired the coach that they drafted the quarterback for, brought in somebody else, and they turned everything around. The Giants might want to look at how that worked out going forward. But that's a team that's also bound. You've got two really big games. After the bye, you play a number of teams that are questionable on where they are. Washington's season is pretty much done. Dallas's season is kind of there, but not great. The Raiders is done. Minnesota probably could be done by that point based on the way things are going for them right now. So erring on the side of caution with Jaxson Dart, to me, makes the most sense. Sitting him for the rest of the year, that's a little tougher because the guy does need experience playing. And one of the things I think let's switch to as part of that experience, though, is you're also rolling him out there, though, with what's got, I would say, for a team that had a B squad of offensive talent before they lost their best players. I mean, you're literally rolling out like the 8th grade group, not even the JV football team. We're rolling out the 8th grade group at some of the skill positions.
Yeah. Though Isaiah Hodgins did help, which is funny. I mean, people forget that Isaiah Hodgins had a chance in 2023 to cement a roster spot and failed miserably on the Giants. So he had the really good end to 2022. In 2023, he started 9 games. He played in all 17, and he just didn't perform. And then he spent the following year basically on the practice squad, and then the Giants got rid of him, and he's been in limbo on Pittsburgh's. So he comes in, and I don't want to spend too much time on this, but I was actually impressed with the way the Giants performed against Green Bay. I didn't expect that game to be that close. They had a fourth quarter lead. Again, the fourth quarter defense. But I didn't expect them to be in that game, and they were. And it's kind of embarrassing for Green Bay that the Giants were doing that to them. But Isaiah Hodgins played pretty darn well for his first game. Even Tim Kelly said it was one of the most remarkable things he'd seen in his coaching career to have a guy come in and just basically, again, the advantage he has is Hodgins has some familiarity with the Giants system because of his time here. If he had been anybody else, he would have been like, I don't know the routes. I don't know any of this, but he did have that. And it's just another nail in the coffin for Jalen Hyatt that this guy comes in and immediately does what Jalen can't do. So they're a little bit better off in this sense that they've got Wan'Dale, they've got Isaiah, and theoretically Darius Slayton will be back, though he's been dealing with a hamstring and missed some practice again this week, but they think he's going to play. So, but you never know what you're going to get from Darius. He could be like no catches with 2 drops, or he could have a 100-yard game that he has once in a blue moon. So theoretically, they could be a little bit better than they've been. But like you said, this is not a good group of wide receivers. And the question moving forward is, do they make a big effort to re-sign Wan'Dale or not? And I think a lot of that's going to be tied with Joe Schoen. If just Joe Schoen's here, he probably is going to pound the table for some of his guys. And if it's a new guy, he's going to be like, I don't have any connection to some of these people. I don't care if they're back or not. So that's a whole other conversation. But
yeah.
So I mean, Joe Schoen, I mean, I still suspect that Evan Neal and Jalen Hyatt are still on the roster because of Joe Schoen at this point. I don't know I mean, Evan, that's obviously on IR now, but for 10 games, he was a nobody, a non-factor, and Jalen's been a non-factor. So
there's a couple, I will actually want to get back to that in a minute when we do the state. Real quick on this game, though, what I think is interesting, and everything you just said, where I think people might be surprised in this game. I think the Giants actually might put up a decent number of points. They have a couple things in their favor. One, it's in a dome. That's going to really help Jameis Winston out. The wind, I think, played a little bit with him, but he can air it out. He can chuck it. Now, he may chuck it to their team, but he will chuck it. But the thing is, Detroit's banged up in their secondary. Detroit has safeties hurt. They have cornerbacks hurt. They are banged up. If a average wide receiving core can if the offensive line can provide Jameis time, an average wide receiver core is going to get time to get open against defensive backs that are kind of trying to gel together. Some of them are playing through injury. Some of them are out because of injury. So I think the Giants might actually produce points in this game. The problem is you are not stopping anybody on defense so far. And I think once you start doing that, as we've seen before, when you can put pressure on a team, especially a team like the Giants, where you force them to have to make points, have to score, maybe score more quickly, that's when mistakes happen. They'll get their points here and there, and they'll probably put up 20, 25. I suspect Detroit will put up 40, somewhere in that range. The game will be over, but the Giants will get meaningless stats and points and all that good stuff. The point out now to go back to something you just said, and let's go to the state of the Giants. Let's start there. Let's not worry so much about the Lion game in particular. Let's do state of the Giants, and let's start with Joe Schoen, the guy who's actually still there. I think this came up. This came up during the week in BBI, BigBlueInteractive.com. There was a conversation about the Giants manipulating the roster bringing up guys from the practice squad. And then the question was, Eric Gray suddenly now coming off the pup, and we're going to activate that dude and he can play. And it looks like he's going to be activated for the game, or at least that's in theory he's going to happen. Now they'll go with 3 backs, but they wouldn't bring up Turbo Miller before to go with 3 backs. I think it's this, and I think it answers the question of why Neal and Hyatt are still on the team. I think the Giants are unbelievably, pardon the Saturday morning swear here, I think they're fucking cheap beyond all belief. And it's not just cheap. They're cheap in how they spend actual cash. Cap numbers don't mean anything. That's all funny money in a lot of ways, because some of it's already been paid out to guys. You know what I mean? Like big bonuses have already been paid.
Yeah.
But in terms of money that they spend, there was a reason why they brought Little Jordan Humphrey up 1, 2, 3 times, but not a 4th time, because now he has to be on the roster. They didn't want to pay that. So now they go, we'll bring Ray McLeod on the practice squad, and we'll just bring him up because we'll pay, that money for 1 week, 2 weeks, but we're not signing him to the roster. They had no choice once we got more injuries, and they went and got Hodgins, and they had to put him on. I think that's why Hyatt's still on the roster. I think that's why Evan Neal was still on the roster. You're already paying him $10 million. You don't want to pay somebody else to give them a full roster spot, so they just keep them in case they're going to use them, but they never did. That, to me, is horrifyingly bad. It is why they juggle what seems to be meaningless spots at the bottom of the roster. Right. A lot of people are like, that doesn't mean it. It does. It's why you carried a multi-million-dollar kicker who can't stay healthy, and you had to keep signing guys to the practice squad and bring them up, and then they suck. It's you didn't want to spend the money on another actual kicker. You didn't want to eat that money, so you just carry him, hope he's going to make it through. And that, to me, is part of the systematic problem that they have.
I suspect you're onto something. We won't ever really completely know, but it is weird. BC Eagles had a good post today or yesterday on reviewing Joe Schoen's free agent period this offseason. It's not good when you look back at what they did this offseason. If you list, you list all the guys that they signed, the dollars they spent on them, they have not lived up to their contracts. Some of it's injury related, Daboll and Holland, but even those guys, they haven't lived up to their contract. But then you got the quarterbacks, you've got
James Hudson.
I mean, you can just go down the list. I mean, Darius Slayton's contract alone is $36 million. So
yeah.
I mean, it's not good. So they will spend money, overspend on free agents, which they've done, and it's why they, even though they have a rookie quarterback, they're in kind of not great cap shape. Which is, when you have a rookie quarterback, you're not supposed to be in that situation, and when you're a 2-win team, you shouldn't be in that situation. But they're not in great cap shape. But then they, like you said, they nickel and dime the bottom of the roster. And this has been going on a few years now.
Yes.
Like, I know a lot of people don't care about this stuff, but it is telling that they're a man short on their practice squad right now. So it's kind of like what you said. They're being very cheap with the bottom of their roster. And I would rather have little Jordan Humphrey on the roster than Jalen Hyatt. I'd feel better about that. And I think in a way, I mean, little Jordan had a very classy statement when he left here, but he's got to be kind of tickled pink that he's in Denver again.
Oh God, yeah,
and out of here, and he's with a real team, and the Giants. If I was him, I would be like, why are you doing this with me? Up and down with the practice squad, and you've got people on the roster who aren't even contributing, like Jalen, and I'm out of here. So I don't blame him if he got offered to get on somebody's 53 contract, a winning team, a team that he was familiar with, and he left. But now we're still got Jalen, and I would have been felt better if we were going into this game with little Jordan and the other receivers that they have than Jalen Hyatt. So I think you're onto something. I don't understand it. It doesn't, because they don't seem to be cheap with the free agent dollars, and they overspend there, but then they nickel. It's like having somebody who goes out and buys expensive cars, but then won't go out and
puts like shitty tires on it. Puts like really shitty tires with you go, oh, that's not the big deal. It is a big deal. If those tires are crap and that car is taking a pounding and you're like all over the road, it is a big deal. There's also something. I had some people argue with me about this. The little Jordan Humphrey was the big one, when they were like, why do you even care? He didn't even get the passes, looked his way after the first week. Doesn't matter. It does matter for this particular reason. So if you could put aside a second, just that instant, I just want to argue a point about something, just listen for just 1 second. Little Jordan Humphrey was signed in the off season. He was through Giants training camp all through the summer. He's on the practice squad from the get-go. So if you had no intention of wanting this guy to play, why did you sign him in the first place? Why did you keep him on the practice squad? That being said, you used him for 3 straight weeks, and then all of a sudden you don't. But instead, you don't go and just bring another guy who's been with you the whole time. You go and get Ray McLeod and bring him onto the practice squad, and then use his elevations the same way. That to me says you are not thinking about this the right way at all. You're literally playing with weird dollars. We're not going to give this guy a full contract for the year. We'll just use this other guy. And then when his is up, and then you had to go get Isaiah Hodgins. You make a great point. Isaiah Hodgins came in and he played very well, all things considered, right?
Right.
But don't overvalue something just because everything else is shit. You know what I mean?
Exactly.
It's like going to a garage sale and going, hey, look, that's not bad, and everything else is just crap.
And little Jordan Humphrey falls in that category too. He's not great.
Oh,
and
absolutely.
Neither is Isaiah Hyatt. And then part of this is it's just he's better than, again, I'm picking on Jalen here. He's better than Jalen. And it's not just the catching, it's the blocking. So one of the things Sean Payton loved about little Jordan Humphrey, and probably why he's back in Denver, is he's a really good run blocker.
Yes.
So, and you've pointed this out multiple times, that the Giants will run plays to Wan'Dale Robinson's side, and Wan'Dale's got to be the man who tries to get the block, which doesn't make any sense. But little Jordan Humphrey, if he even wasn't contributing as a catcher, he was contributing as a blocker. So it's just weird. It's almost like Joe Schoen is sort of playing games Like he's got like this is like a little computer game in his hand, and he's like, "Ooh, how can I manipulate the roster to save $120,000 this week?" You know, something like that. You know, and it's just weird when they go out and spend $36 million on Darius Slayton. It's just I don't get it.
So a conspiracy theorist would say you're onto something right there. Maybe that's my, again, if you're run by an organizational mindset of, as you like to say before when it was on the field, more on one, more on two, but more on one and more on two are run by like the chief moron. If you can walk into the office, maybe you do a Brian Daboll, you pull out your phone, look, I saved 130,000 this week. I saved 50,000 this week for you. Look, and if that's valued, which is part of we changed our whole structure on how we do, then that would make sense. It does seem sometimes like he's playing this weird game, but you wonder who he's playing it with. Like, what are you trying to do? That's a hard one to say. The Giants had 5 tight ends during the summer.
No, that's part of the problem. But I will say this: my daughter's boyfriend is a Miami Dolphins fan, and he asked me the other day, "Why did you guys let Dulcich go?" I said, don't get me started on.
You could ask that from a couple other teams too, but
yeah.
No, but there's just something weird about what's happening with Joe Schoen with this thing. Who you sign. For me, the big part now, looking back on it, is we questioned it, right? We knew Jameis Winston had been signed. I was going back in memory when we found out the Russell Wilson. We were recording it. We were interviewing Patty Traina at the time that the announcement came out that Russell Wilson had been signed. And at the time we were like, okay, the Giants got 2 veteran quarterbacks. And one of the big questions that we had at that time was they're 2 completely different quarterbacks. You've got a smaller in stature, more maneuverability. He does throw a deep ball, but it's a moon ball, but that's kind of it. And then you've got the taller gunslinging, I'll take chances all over the field, but they're completely different quarterbacks. Then we go and draft the guy. So now you spent more money on Wilson than you did on Winston, even though Winston signed for 2 years. So that kind of told you a little bit of where your mindset was at. Then you draft a guy. But then you go and sign a guy like James Hudson. Tons of money. He was going to be your swing tackle, or he was going to play, if you're going to have to, he could play left tackle while Thomas is recovering. At the time, we didn't know Thomas was going to miss time. That didn't really come forward until camp.
Right.
The dude has a meltdown in week 2, and from that point on, he is not seeing the field.
He's invisible now.
So how much are we paying for him this year? 10 mil?
It's a lot.
It's quite a bit of money.
Yeah, I'd have to look it up, but it's not insignificant. He was given a decent contract for a backup. So
and so you've got him who's basically done nothing. You've got Evan Neal, who's 10 mil for this year and has done nothing. You didn't pick up his 5th-year option, so this is it. So you carried a guy on the roster, even though during the summer he clearly was not winning the right guard spot. He was maybe the backup guard, but that obviously was not the case. And so you kept them, and then you kept them through the trade deadline, and I have no idea for real if anybody even would have offered a sandwich for him. But there were rumors that people were interested in checking in on him. And I got to think that some desperately starving offensive line ravaged team might have said, maybe we can just throw this dude out there at his size. He can at least eat up some space, and so it's a half-year rental. Either way, you don't do that, and he never plays. He doesn't even play on special teams. How does Joe Schoen survive this year when his record right now is 20-41-1? It's absolutely no different than Brian Daboll's, and he was already fired. How does Joe Schoen survive this?
Well, see, this is where losing changes perspectives as the losing mounts. So if people were going to go back and watch us from shows from September and October, and you were listening to you and probably me, I don't remember exactly my position on this. Sure. But I remember you being more likely to keep Schoen.
Correct. I admit that.
And I'm not trying to throw you under the bus. I'm saying as the losses mount and the frustration mounts, people naturally fans get to that thing like they didn't want to get clean house. I'm like, this whole thing reeks and I want to get rid of that, fairly or unfairly. And I'm not saying one is fair or unfair. I'm just saying that as the losses mount, you're like, and the Kafka falls in the same boat too.
Yes.
Fairly or unfairly to him, the stink is attached to him right now. And as I said in the last couple of previews, he's kind of in a really bad situation now because he's been basically handed the Titanic as it's sinking. You're in charge now, and you're like, what the hell am I supposed to do with this mess?
Yeah,
it's
already hit the iceberg. It's already hit the iceberg.
Yeah, and he's stuck with Bowen, and he's stuck with the issues that they have at wide receiver and the injury to Dart, and Neighbors is not there, and Scadaboo's hurt, and the cornerback situation that got the inside linebackers. We go on and on. They've got issues, and so he's kind of like, on his credit, like I said, I was impressed with the way that they competed against Green Bay. He actually may end up being a really good coach, but he's in a really bad situation. To answer your question with Shane, as these losses mount, and people are like, and this is my issue now. I look at the wide receiver room, and I'm like, this receiver room was held up by Neighbors, and that was it. And you could say Wan'Dale maybe, but again, Wan'Dale's a complimentary piece at best. He's certainly not somebody who can carry a team and be the focal point. We that's been confirmed. So you take Neighbors out of the situation, and the wide receiver room immediately comes the worst in the NFL. That's on Joe Schoen. The inside linebacker situation has gotten hit hard by injuries, really hard, but it doesn't look good either. The cornerback situation, his cornerback, and again, Wink Martindale pounded the table for him, but Shane drafted him, is our favorite Deonte Banks. He doesn't look long for the NFL. He just doesn't look like he wants to hit any or touch anybody right now. I mean, Parcells would have gotten rid of this guy immediately because he would have said he doesn't want to tackle or hit anybody. So, but the cornerback situation looks terrible right now. So you look at the roster and you say, Joe Schoen's been here for 4 years. Why are some of these positions so barren? And then we talk about the free agents that he just signed, and we talk about the salary cap should not be in the situation that it's in. So at some point, if you have a scale and you're sort of saying he's got this on, this is his pros and these are his cons, the cons are starting to get heavier and heavier and heavier, especially as the losses mount. So I suspect he's been kind of like in the past with John Mara. He's wanted to keep people on, but as the losses mounted, it got to the point where he couldn't justify it either. He wanted to keep Kevin Abrams. He wanted to keep Joe Judge. He wanted to keep other guys, but it imploded. And I suspect if the Giants don't win another game this year, Joe Schoen, I think, is really vulnerable. Don't you think? I mean, if they don't beat Washington, they don't beat Dallas, they're not even competitive in those games. I mean,
again, if you take out, and I know a lot of people say you can't do that, but I think you have to. If you take out what appears now to be the anomaly, which is the first 9 games of 22, they finished that year 2-5-1. Then you win 3 entire games. You win 6 games the next year through injury. 3 games the year after that. 2 games now.
7 games. They've won 7 games since the midway point of that year.
You are falling. You are so falling apart. Like, and even the wins that you had when we got 6, right? That's in 23. The 6 wins you got.
6 in 23 too.
Yeah. The 6.
So 13 games. Yeah.
So 6 you got in 23 though. Come on. I mean, Tommy DeVito was quarterbacking some of that. You actually looked a little bit better. You won a game against Arizona in week 2 that you should have lost. We were down 20-something to nothing.
Though they've won 13 games in 3.5 years, right? Let's just give them. Let's not litigate the 6 wins. Let's give it to them. Let's say 6 or 6, 8. So you two in the second half.
So you're 11,
8, 3,
and then 2,
11,
13. 13 total.
So we're at 13
9
games in 3.5 years. That's not good enough.
It's on a steeper drop. 6, 3. You're now 2, and your talent is so much better. The funny thing is this: not all seasons are the same, and this is something I was going to bring up based on something you had said in your preview. When we started this season, right before the season started, we looked at what we thought might happen. And one of the things that you kept saying is, and I will give 50% credit to you on this part of it, because you're right on this part of it. It was the reasoning that turned out to not be right. You said, what if after 10 games, they're 2-8? Well, they were, but you thought it was because of the schedule. It clearly has nothing
Correct.
to do with the schedule. The
Correct.
Giants could have won numerous games. You've had
Correct.
leads in multiple games. So the idea that Joe Schoen didn't bring in talent is not completely true.
Correct.
There is talent there. The problem is twofold. One, you had a coach that clearly was not handling what they want to keep calling a CEO thing. I think really means more of, I need a coach that coaches his coaches, that becomes a unit together. Daboll was more of a guy that would yell, threaten, buddy up with whoever, buddy up with his players. But I don't know. I lost respect for him early on in his coaching pieces here, and that's seemed to bear fruit later on. But the other part is, though, while you did bring in some talent, it does not seem to be a cohesive meshing bit of talent. It's like, I got this and I need a position over here, so I got this guy, but they don't mesh together well. And after a while, when you lose the linchpin, the one, Neighbors, that really brought a lot of attention to be like, okay, this is pretty good. Now all of a sudden, those pieces don't make sense. Wandell is not a number one. He's not really a two. He's a slot guy. He's a quicker, more athletic Cole Beasley with less catching ability. That's really what he is.
Right. He's limited in what he can do. And
now he's the number one.
Yeah. And like the last game, he wasn't really a factor because he's the guy that is going to get a little bit more attention than other guys. But you hit the nail on the head. There is talent on the roster. It's just it's a top heavy roster, and the talent that they used hasn't been coached well. So in other words, we've talked about that this is an attractive team because of Dart. And by the way, I've seen more people pick up on this, like YouTubers who cover the league and national pundits who have said, this Giants job is very attractive for all the reasons you and I have talked about. You've harped more on the quarterback, but they've said the same thing that I've said about the pass rush and the left tackle and all that. So there are people here that there is talent here. But again, Shane Bowen doesn't know how to coach the defense, and that's been the problem. Daboll, I think you and I have come to the conclusion we don't see the genius of him. No. I mean, there's no creativity in his offense. It seems to be wing it kind of a thing. We don't know about Kafka yet. But so I think it's a combination of the coaching has not been up to par. The roster's been weirdly top heavy in places and very shallow in other places. And so again, you can point to things Shane has done and say, you know what? He did a good job here. He did a good job here. He did a good job here. But the problem is the other side of the ledger is mounting up too. So it gets to the point where it's like, yeah, he's got wins, but he's got a lot of losses. And at some point they kind of wash and you say, can't we do better than this? So that's kind of where I am right now is like, yeah, again, his free agent period was bad. If you're going to grade it now, it looks really bad. The draft looks better, but the free agency period looks bad. In the past, some of his free agent periods have looked decent, but his draft hasn't looked great. So it's kind of this mediocrity, and it gets to the point where you say it's not good enough. So that's kind of where I'm at, and I suspect as the losses mount, more and more fans are going to be like, I just want these guys gone. It's just fairly or unfairly, the frustration is people are going to say, I just want a clean house, and I want a breath of fresh air in here. And Shane has done this to himself too. So we shouldn't feel bad for him. The big question moving forward is if they get rid of Shane, can ownership pick a GM and head coach that can actually be successful? So I brought up, and I got this from Dan Duggan. I want to credit him going back and looking at the coaches that they interviewed the last time they've had coaching vacancies. And like in 2022, it was Daboll, Anarumo, Flores, Frazier, Patrick Graham, for God's sake, Dan Quinn. And then before that, when the Joe Judge, it was Bieniemy, it was Martindale, McCarthy, Matt Rule, Chris Richard. I mean, I can go on and on. In 2018, it was Josh McDaniels, Patricia, Spags, Studsville, Steve Wilkes. Before that was Terry Terrell Austin, Adam Gass, Marone, Mike Smith, Spags again. So it's not a great group, but like even the people that they've chosen to interview, it's not like this, wow, And as I put in the preview, when you look around, like, let's back up. You were talking about New England Patriots. Last year, the big debate was, should they fire Daboll? Vrabel's out there, and shouldn't we get Vrabel? And now Vrabel's in New England, and look where they're at, and Daboll's gone, and we're in limbo. So again, it feels like they're just missing opportunities here. They're missing, Sean Payton was out there. Sean Payton obviously can coach still. They haven't kind of looked at the San Francisco coaching tree, which I admire a great deal. I just hope, and then we got Jay Glazer's report. I don't know how much stock you can put into it. And they were, the names are McCarthy and Arthur Smith and Spags again.
How you can,
it's not an inspiring list.
I had mentioned Arthur Smith last year towards the end, not because I wanted him, but because he made sense when you had mobile quarterbacks and a guy that maybe could use. But the fact of the matter is, Arthur Smith's offenses have been very, very pathetic, very pedestrian with the Steelers. Even with Aaron Rodgers, it is pretty pathetic and pedestrian. Arthur Smith would be the most uninspiring.
God, that would be so like, ugh,
And if you remember back to Joe Judge, let's be clear. The Giants really wanted Matt Rule. The Giants wanted Matt Rule, and Carolina swept in and gave a shit ton of money to Matt Rule and took that right off the table.
And he flamed out too.
So
that's my point is they're not even interviewing the right people. The interview pool, they're not even getting the right people.
And they tend to stick to they make up their mind. It's almost ahead of time of, we're looking for this particular thing, and then we just fit people into that thing. Versus Joe Judge took a right turn. Daboll, the interesting thing about Daboll is they also interviewed Brian Flores. And I still say to this day that Bill Belichick intentionally tanked the situation with Brian Flores, intentionally tipped him off, that like congratulating him and then realizing, whoops, I sent to the wrong guy. Okay. I might buy it. You're that much of an idiot now after seeing you. Well, because I think quite frankly, I think he had an issue with Brian Flores. I think he did not want Brian Flores to be the Giants coach. I think he wanted to create that problem. I think he wanted to, I don't know what Belichick's thing is. Look at what he does now. The man is goddamn insane. He was at a co-ed cheerleading competition that his stupid 24-year-old girlfriend's in. I'm like, come on, dude. Seriously. Jesus Christ. It's embarrassing. How the hell did you, what happened? Was Tom Brady that much of your success? Did we just not know that you were batshit crazy all that time? But that being said, right, let's back up to last year. The big thing that we talked about, right, when the Daniel Jones thing flamed out, that's when all of a sudden that things started to really come out that maybe Shane and Daboll were both going to go, right? They were both going to go. Then all of a sudden Shane was coming back. Hey, Flannel, you can say whatever you want about that, and if you don't have to take me seriously, and I don't care. Bill Belichick did that fucking intentionally. You're not that stupid that you text the wrong guy. How the hell does Bill Belichick text the wrong guy? The man who's anal about every bit of his team's, what time they come in, what they're going to practice that day, what situation it is at all times, and he accidentally texts the wrong guy? I'm not buying that. That being said, all of a sudden we started hearing that Shane had met with ownership, and now they were going to meet with Daboll, which told us Shane was already coming back.
Correct.
What did Shane say that separated him and Daboll at that point to make them two different things that Mara was comfortable with it?
Well, there have been people on BBI that have speculated, and I don't know if this is true, but it fits, that Shane is just better, friendlier with the Tim McDonald's and the Chris Maras of the world.
Yeah, I did hear
and
that.
He fits into the sort of lackey, they're all buddies. I don't know if that's true, but that makes sense in the sense that, human relationships matter. So if somebody comes to me and says, man, you need to get rid of so-and-so in your business because they're not up to snuff. And I'm like, I get along with this person. I like this person. I'm not going to get rid of that person. So that may be part of it. I don't know. So that could be an influence here. And again, what complicates all this is and again, I don't want to harp on this too much, is
Sure.
John Mara's health situation.
Yep.
So if there was somebody who was reporting, and I don't remember, and somebody posted about that Chris Mara is going to have more say, and probably Tim McDonald in the franchise moving forward because of the coaching search. And well, of course they are, because John's in chemo and he's undergoing radiation. So you would, I mean, again, I'm not defending that. I'm not saying I want them to do that, but that makes sense. If you have a family member who's seriously sick, the other family members have to pick up the slack. So in a way, maybe that will work out for us, because John certainly can't pick people. Now, maybe he was taking the advice from Chris and Tim, and that was part of the problem. But maybe Tim and Chris, ironically, are better or less crappy at picking people. I don't know. So this whole thing,
hard to say. They've all been involved since everything went off the cliff after.
I know, but we just don't know who's
doing what.
Yeah, who's doing what. And again, this is all pure speculation. But maybe Chris has gone to John and said, "Don't hire Joe Judge. That's ridiculous." I'm not saying that's what happened, but maybe it did. So I don't know. I don't know. It could end up working out better for the Giants. What I just worry about is January is going to be the decisive month for the Giants in determining the course of the franchise. And it's going to be what decisions they make at the head coaching and the GM that's going to decide the fate of the organization for the next 3 years. And they have not been good at making these decisions in January in 2016, 2018, 2020. Now we're at 2024. They've not been good. They're horrible at the plate. If you're going to use a baseball analogy, they strike out all the time. And here they are coming back up to the plate. So can we have a movie ending where finally they hit a home run here? I don't know. That's what we're all praying for at this point. But we're all a little bit, or a lot of us are a little bit like, Jesus Christ, they're not good at this.
Well, and so here's where it gets to be difficult. And I hear too many people say things because I think it's groupthink, and maybe they truly believe it. I don't know. But all this, I'm so tired of hearing half measures things from a lot of people. The Giants have tried every measure possible.
Yes.
It's like we have replaced a guy with a guy who was already on the staff. McAdoo was already on the staff. Move him up. He becomes the coach, and they kind of kept forward, and then they got rid of him. Still had the same GM. They bring in Pat Shurmur. They fire that GM in the middle of this guy's. We bring in Dave Gettleman, boom, and then we get rid of that coach, but keep Gettleman. Now we go get another coach. Then we get rid of the coach and Gettleman, and now we bring in a coach and a new GM together. But most people, most Giants fans in 22, certainly at the end of 22, would have been on board with, we made the right choice. We got a GM, we got a coach. Right. They turned chicken shit into chicken salad, and we actually made the playoffs. And then came, we won't beat it up, then came the offseason and the decisions about Daniel Jones and Saquon Barkley. Those two things at that time. But I will go back, and at some point I'm going to create a video of this whole piece of it. But you go back to that moment. There was a piece, though, that I think kind of came through, and it was really the underlying problem. And I think it's the underlying problem even still today. The attitude that Joe Schoen and Brian Daboll had did not match the verbiage that they would put out there. So the season ended, and what did they say? Things happened a little soon. We were a little ahead of schedule, but we have things that we still need to do, that we know it's a process, right? Yet they're going to Knicks games, they're going to Rangers games together, and they're on the big screen, and it was all. And then the offseason happened, and then training camp, or as we now look back on it, summer camp with Brian Daboll happened, and you get a Darren Waller comes in with a history of injuries, and we're going to be this great offense. Daniel Jones has one drive. It's just amazing against the Panthers. He doesn't have to play again, and then the first game of the season happens, and everything falls apart. That attitude and things where they said, we knew we got things we still got to do. That didn't mean anything. Yes, we're hit there, but we haven't arrived. the way they presented themselves did not fit the verbiage. They acted like they did arrive. They handled summer like we were rolling in. This was going to be our year. Then what did they say? Man, we got to get Daniel Jones some weapons. That's what we got to do. We just didn't have the weapons. So they go into that. The Giants are very reactionary to almost everything that they do, but unfortunately, it's retroactively reactionary, meaning the issue was there and then it became obvious. Now we'll go back. But the problem is, as you go forward, all the other cracks become much bigger when you focus in the wrong area. And that's what's been happening. So my thing is with the Giants right now, half measure, full measure. I don't know that it matters when the people making the decisions are the ones that done both of those before. Right. What has to happen, though, is you're going to have to get it right, and it has to stay right. I think they had it right for a little while with Brian Daboll and Joe Schoen, and then early success, I think, brought out the worst parts of both of their characters and where it's led to today.
Yeah, I don't know if it's one guy or not. It may, like I said, a lot of people, the conventional wisdom on Giants fan base, from what I can tell from BBI and social media in general, is they're all incompetent boobs. It's not just John. It's everybody. But I don't know. I'm not trying to just blame John. I'm just saying we don't really know. I suspect it's everyone. I think that's what you're saying. I suspect it's everyone. But they're clearly not making the right decision. Clearly, that's the genesis of all this. Is they've made, as John just said, they have tried a variety of things. They've stayed in-house. They've gone outside of house. They've fired people in season now, including the quarterback, who's now leading the #1 offense in the NFL, by the way. Did you know that? The Colts are #1? They're the #1 offense.
I have to think about it.
And then our defensive back coach is there too, and they've got a top 10, top 5 defense, right? So it's
but don't be surprised if the Colts don't win their own division.
I know.
I see that coming. I see that collapse coming. You can see it coming.
I don't want to get too into this, Paul. Again, I don't have any control over. John and I include the BBI and the inside BBI merchandise is all by Printify. That's a third-party vendor. So if they have Black Friday sales, I don't know. So John and I have very little control over the storefront. It's not like we have an inventory. We don't. It's just so you guys know. And this is John got his pint like within days. I had to wait for like 2 weeks to get mine. They manufacture on order. There's no stock. So if you order something, that's why if you want to get something for Christmas, I would order it early, because to me, I found out it either comes right away or it can take a couple of weeks for something to show up.
Right.
I was like, why does John have his pint and I don't have mine already? So,
I've ordered a shit ton of stuff.
So, but in terms of anything, again, we run again. One last thing too, because I get this a lot on BBI. The thing with the ads, the ads are the same way. I don't have any control over the ads. The ads are done by the third party vendor. So I don't have control over ads. I don't have control over the storefront. I'm just like. And they're like it's like an affiliate relationship. Anyway, sorry to go off on a tangent like that.
No, you're good.
Getting back to football. So you and I are going to have to start doing shows on the names of people that are being mentioned. Yes. What I found interesting too is this. I wanted to bring this up. Pat Fitzgerald has been going to the Giants practices this week. And for those who don't know, Pat Fitzgerald for a long, long time was Northwestern's head coach, and he got fired a couple of years ago, I believe. But he's buddy with Kafka. Kafka went to Northwestern, didn't he?
That's correct.
Yeah. So that's probably where the relationship obviously started. So and Fitzgerald's background is defense. So I've wondered, and I think other people have mentioned this on Twitter, did Kafka bring Fitzgerald in this week to keep an eye on Shane Bowen? That makes sense to me. He wasn't there just one day. It wasn't like his friend showed up and he
came back.
Seen that before, Strahan will show up or Tom Coughlin will show up and hang out. No, Fitzgerald was there this week, at least 2 days, maybe all 3. I don't know if he was there a third day. So is he like is he the eyes and ears of Kafka right now, trying to keep an eye on what Shane Bowen is doing?
Well, there might actually be a bigger piece to that, to what you're saying is, what do the Giants have coming up in 2 weeks? They have a bye.
Right.
If you were going to fire Shane Bowen,
yep,
the question has always been, who then takes over.
Exactly.
And it doesn't seem like anybody on the staff has been even thought of as that would be the guy. So if you bring a guy in and he observes and then you talk to him and be like, listen, this is probably what we're going to do. Do you think you could, and it's for for the last 4 weeks of the season. Can you, do you think you could do that? That makes sense. I actually posted something back to Dan Duggan. I said, do we need to read more into this? And he was like, no, it's just a mentor there, who's just coming to see his guy. Yeah, I think you might be onto something. And don't be surprised. The Giants defense is so historically bad, and it's clear the players are checking out.
Oh, they've checked out. Yeah, that's
Bowen.
part of the problem. Is it's not even just scheme now. I think the players have kind of checked out. So I think that's part of the problem with Dexter Lawrence. I think Dexter Lawrence has said, I'm not playing hard for this guy. Now, he did play better against the Packers. But I just think, we saw a glimpse of that when the Brian Burns, the player who's playing at an MVP level, went into after the game was yelling about, I don't care what he said afterwards. That was clearly a shot at Bowen about, what the hell are we doing dropping all these people in cover? And again, that's like any fan. We're like, what are you doing at this point? So yeah, the only thing I will say is I don't recall a coach showing up multiple days in a row like that. And maybe I'm reading too much into it. I'm not saying there's definitely going to be a switch. I'm just saying maybe he wants an independent view of Shane Bowen and whether he should get fired now and somebody else should be promoted, like you said. That begs the question. I was like, who do you promote? Is it Patterson? Can Patterson do that? I don't see Charlie Bullen being like a defensive coordinator. I don't know. I'd have to look at their resumes again and see who could possibly do that. The defensive back coach just got here this past year from the Jets. I'm not sure if they can do that. So
yeah, and I know
there's 6 games left too. It's
that's the part that I know a lot of people are kind of mad, right? They're like, why didn't you fire Bowen? And I'm thinking, what truly do you think it actually is going to do for you for the rest of the year? I do believe he should go. I can't stand the guy. But I'm not gonna be up in arms about it. You already fired the head coach. The rest of that staff has to know, minus Mike Kafka being handed this job, right? And that, I don't want to say that's completely not possible, but it's pretty improbable at the moment to think that Kafka could get this job. But it's not impossible. That being said, even if he did, I still have to believe that a bunch of the coaches would be gone anyway. So a lot of these guys know, no matter what, they're just here for the next X number of weeks. The players know it. So firing Bowen's not changing anything other than the fact that you're going to have to take somebody else, move them over to now call the defense, and you're moving people around, which makes it even harder for a guy like Kafka who's trying to coach the entire team. He's not just the offensive guy; he's trying to coach the entire team now. It's just too much. But I
probably would have done it though. I probably would have done it, but that might have been me being like, again, you're being more practical. Part of me is being emotional, saying, I'm done with the thing with Bowen is he did the same damn thing in Denver that he did in Dallas. He didn't learn.
You could say that for the whole thing.
That's why I was for the first time ever, I was joining the choir of BBI and Giants fans on social media that I've never done, and saying, fire him before he gets on the airplane. It's like, don't even let him get on the airplane. What are you doing, dumbass? I just want to address this real quick. Yeah, Coughlin was hired as a consultant when he was let go by the Jaguars, and he wanted to keep his hand in things. So it was a little bit different. He was professionally.
And he was getting ready to coach the next year. He was putting a staff together. He was meeting people. That's
right.
What he was doing.
And so there was a little bit more than that. Coaches were actually bringing him in, doing kind of what I suspect Kafka might be doing with Fitzgerald, in that he wanted an independent. They wanted him to come in to look at. And some people were doing him a favor. There's a lot of respect for Coughlin. They knew he was fired. They knew he was out of football, and they were saying, "Hey, if you want to come and spend a week with us, we'd love it." That kind of thing. So. But that wasn't just him hanging out. That there was more to it than that. Anyway, sorry.
No, you're good. And we need to start going over in the future, like you said, names of guys and who to look for. The one I brought up, and I'm gonna pound that table till the end, and it probably won't happen especially to the depth of which I said it. But I'm all on board with Chris Shula. I'm all on board with Chris Shula coming on board, bringing over some of the other guys from the Rams tree, and Tony Pasteur's coming over as basically the president, and whether he's president and GM or just president, and then you get a different GM, but he runs the entire football operations. That would be more pushing Amara out of the way. But there's. For the Maras, what goddamn difference does it make if you just gave yourself a different title and let somebody else run it? You own it. All of this is yours. It is all money for you. Don't you want to not be embarrassed at this point? I mean, we're talking since the Giants won the Super Bowl in 2011, which, by the way, they were not a great team in 2011. They had a great run. They barely
made
a great
run. They barely got into the playoffs, and
it lined up.
The running game was awful that year,
and it lined up very well for them. I was doing a radio broadcast during that time, and one of the things I said for them, the best thing that ever happened to them was the fact that the way it ended, New Orleans had to go out to San Francisco. Had it been New Orleans at home, and then the Giants had to go to New Orleans, Giants never would have left New Orleans there. New Orleans offense would have just eaten the Giants up inside the dome.
We had a weird problem with New Orleans and going down there and playing them. We were during that time period, we wouldn't just lose, we'd get clobbered by that.
Yes.
Which was really weird.
So sending New Orleans out to San Francisco on a grass field, it worked out so that and the Giants playing San Francisco going out there, it didn't matter. They were physical, we were physical. This was a big matchup that really came down to which quarterback, and ultimately Eli was the bigger, the guy who stood in and took more and was able to persevere. Yes, the 49ers turned the ball. Anyway, doesn't matter. Since that point in time, though, it has gone down. 2012, we had a winning season, but didn't make the playoffs. Downhill, downhill, downhill. And it's been nothing but weirdness. We had the one 2016, but the Giants spent a shit ton of money on defense.
Like $100 million or something like that.
All on defense. And they relied on, look how good. And I remember I made the statement on BBI one time, and I got flamed for it during that time. I said, don't overestimate stats in a losing season. The Giants offense, yes, had decent stats, but there were things that said this team, you need to be careful. We were relying on Odell Beckham making things happen out of nowhere with Eli, but the rest of it was kind of shaky. The O-line was not great. We didn't have a lot of other weapons, and the Giants lived on their defense in the 16 season. That went off just fell off the cliff the next year. Beckham gets hurt the next year. In fact, I think we had Brandon Marshall got hurt. I mean, we basically had nothing at wide receiver at that point. The Giants have done everything kind of like that. 22 was their 16. It came out of nowhere. They got a little big-headed about it, and then it all falls apart. This change now, whoever you're going to get has to be somebody that's going to come in, bring in their staff, and it's got to be their thing. Right now, I don't know what, if you said to me, tell me what the New York Giants, besides being bad, tell me what the New York Giants defense is. I don't know. I know we have outside guys that can rush, but you know what I saw? I watched a team in Houston on Thursday night absolutely change the way a game was being played by one of the best players in the NFL, and he didn't have an answer for the fact that they were coming after him like there was no tomorrow.
Right.
And that's what the Giants are supposed to be, but they're not.
Right.
I don't know what they are in defense.
Well, Shula's been mentioned, hasn't he? I mean, you mentioned
he's been coming up more, yes, since that time.
Do you even remember who's been mentioning him? Did Glazer mention him too, or no?
He mentioned more of the guys who had been around before. I did see him. Was it Renan had him in a list one time? I want to say Duggan had him in a list as well, but don't 100% quote me on that.
The thing is, as you have said, if we were going to sort of reverse engineer this, they've been reactionary. And if they're going to be reactionary moving forward, you would think that if they're going to try to get rid of the country club atmosphere, they would try to get somebody who's a little bit more of a disciplinarian.
Yes.
Does that mean they will do that? I don't know. But if they're going to follow their MO of the previous years and be reactionary, you would think that they would go. I've wondered, and I know Cy's not on board with this, I've wondered if it's time for just to go with a defensive coach too, and just to set the tone from the top bottom that we're going to be a tough physical football team and not this pretty team. I miss the days, and I still enjoy watching football where the other team beats up on their opponent. That that when you play them, you're in for a battle. And I think that comes more from defensive oriented coaches. I'm not advocating strictly just look at defensive coaches, but I would not be against them looking at a defensive coach, and I would certainly interview some of them. So I'm on board with looking at Shula. But the Arthur Smiths of the world, I understand. And there was a really good debate. It sounded like you and me. There was a really good debate on some show. I wish I could remember who it was. They were debating whether Mike McCarthy would be good fit for the Giants. And one guy sounded just like you, and one guy sounded just like me. And so there is a pro and con to somebody like a Mike McCarthy. There's a very high floor with the Mike McCarthy, because even if you don't like him, you have to admit that his teams in the regular season
are successful.
Yeah. It's the postseason that's been a problem with him. To me, he's not inspiring because of because of my subjective Giants view of him, of our team going into Green Bay and beating them. And that was a Green Bay. I mean, talk about disappointing. They were 15-1. Weren't the Packers 15-1 when we went in there?
Yeah.
I mean, can you imagine losing a 15-1? I mean, getting knocked out by a team like the Giants when you're 15-1 at home. I mean, that's so I've got kind of that in the back of my head, and that maybe that's unfair. So but I wouldn't be completely against it, but I'm not inspired by it. I don't know what direction they should go to. You and I have talked about before that they may not want to take a chance. And I've seen this debate with Giants fans, and it's a legitimate debate. They have tried to get the next hot commodity who's not proven, and they've been 0 for 4 or whatever they are on it. And now a lot of fans are like, you can't take a chance like that. You've got to get a known commodity, which would suggest again a McCarthy or somebody else like that. But like Arthur, I don't even know where Arthur Smith's name is. I mean, I hope that's not. And Matt Nagy's been mentioned.
Yeah, that one shocks me. I'm like, are you serious? And somebody else mentioned on BBI, what about Josh McDaniel? I'm like, I don't want a guy who's failed multiple times.
Yeah, no.
Like, he's a great offensive coordinator. It's been proven he cannot be a head coach. He's a horrible head coach.
And there have been 2 college names now thrown out there too that don't have any NFL experience. So it's weird. It's going to be interesting to see. The big question I have this for you, John, is this. Do you really believe that Joe Schoen's in charge of the coaching search?
I do not.
I don't either.
I do
right?
not. I wonder where that. First off, why would the Giants themselves be like, we're just going to be like, he's leading the search? That seems like just a general statement right now that says we're not firing him. And then that was it. They don't need to. We know that that's not been the case in the past. I mean, that's not how they did things. I mean, John Mara is going to have a huge, if he's healthy, or Chris or whoever's now speaking for the Maras, and Robert Tisch as well, are going to have a say in who this coach is going to be and who you're even going to interview. If you're going to tell them I'm bringing, who's the guy? Is it, everybody keeps bringing him up. Is it the Iowa State coach or what, Tulane or whoever it was? I can't remember, but this guy, and they're like, oh, bring him up. I'm like, what, where the hell are you getting that name from? I don't even want
Tulane
Freeman. I don't want
brought up at some point. Yeah,
I don't want Freeman from Notre Dame either. Why? Because these guys have not done it at the NFL level, and this is a whole different world than what it used to be.
You know what's weird about the Notre Dame thing? Again, I haven't watched a lot of Notre Dame this year, but because they were mentioning his name, I put on the Notre Dame game the other day, and just for a few plays, and they had a 4th and goal from the 1. And remember, this is a team with arguably the best running back in the country, and they threw this ridiculously difficult, I think it was a fade pass on 4th and inches, and it was incomplete. And I'm like, you have like the best running back, and your offensive line has been pounding the other team. Why are you? So I was like, pass. I was like, no, pass. Like, no, I don't.
Yeah, no, I got
guy.
you. I got you.
Why are you? Why? Anyways, so I don't want to use one play to discount somebody, but I was kind of like, why are you getting cute? I want a coach that is not wed to analytics.
Right.
And it's funny reading Sai's Twitter feed now, because on Saturdays he's going, and on Sundays he's going off on the analytics crowd. He's just, and I've always been like that too, because I think the football is an emotional game, and there's a feel to it, and there's the numbers crunchers I think are wrong. These people that just go base everything on math with football, I think is a mistake. And I know it drives Cy crazy, and it drives me a bit crazy too. And it's like, no, you don't. You take the points. There's a reason why you take John Madden and Bill Parcells and these guys were right. There are times when you just take the points and get on the board. You don't go for it on fourth and go. Anyway, that's me.
Yeah, no, and the problem with the Giants, I think, under Daboll, is that the application of analytics. But absolutely, it's totally. It was all based on whatever Brian Daboll felt at that moment, but it lacked a true sense of who your team is, what they need at that moment. And it was more like what he desperately needed. You made a point, and I don't want to sidetrack where we were, but you made a point earlier about Brian Daboll, right? We said he's not creative. What he relied on is the creativity of the guy that they would put at quarterback. It wasn't his offense.
And he
Those
did that
guys
in Buffalo too.
Exactly. And then he lived off that, and you could take credit for it, and you could say, yeah, that was really great, but it's only great as long as that guy can do it. Daniel Jones is not Jaxson Dart in terms of his ability to move around, still be able to throw on the move the way that Dart can throw on the move, and isn't going to pick and choose and take off the way that Dart did. But he tried to, and he tried to run Daniel Jones almost like he was running Josh Allen. And Jones was taking those wicked hits, and he's just not very athletic, but he couldn't pick and throw the way that Dart does it. None of it was based on his offense. It was based on the ability of the guy at quarterback to make shit happen when you really didn't scheme it open very well. Okay, so back to what we were just talking about a second ago. This idea with where you're going and what you're doing with the coach staff. I think you got to bring somebody in that has a sense of self. They have to have a sense of self and say, this is what my team is going to be. And I see a lot of things that the Giants do seems to be history-based, right? When they had Ray Perkins decides to leave. We moved Bill. It turned out great, but we moved Bill Parcells up. But they didn't really want to after the first year. We all know.
He only survived by the skin of his teeth. Yeah.
And that was where Parcells decided, I'm doing things my way. Now, Parcells and George Young clashed. Mm-hmm. George Young, he put the guys that he wanted, and I don't know how much influence the Giants coaching staff had or didn't have, but it was ultimately George Young's decision on who they were getting for the players. They move on from Parcells. What do? They tried to do the same thing again. We'll just elevate a guy from the staff and let him go. He goes 2 years, they get rid of him. They go outside. But they go outside with a guy that has a deeper NFL connection, a connection to Tom Landry. Tom Landry had a connection to the New York Giants, and they bring in Dan Reeves. They go basically, it was New Jersey Broncos, as everybody remembers. So he started bringing his guys over. But then George Young was still there. And
just interrupt you for a second. I think it was Arnie Fez on the website who brought up the fact that Frank Gifford actually had a big role in convincing Wellington to bring in Dan Reeves too. So there was that. So again,
the history part where
there's that connection again. So
you did that. They move on from Reeves. What do? They go get a guy that actually had been with the Giants briefly in Jim Fossil, and they bring him in, but he had a connection previously to the Giants. At some point, you need to just go and get the right guy. So here's the reason why, separate of why I want him, but why I think he might be the guy who doesn't have head coaching experience that might get looked at. What is Chris Shula's last name?
Yeah. I've wondered about that.
The Giants are deep into history. We're bringing in a Shula. As much as I love the fact that this is the guy I want, if that's your reasoning for picking him, dear God, this is scary, because God forbid that somebody named Arnsberger comes out of nowhere and you want to hire that dude. Well, that's my fear.
The other thing too, and I can't get past this mentally, is I'm thinking the way that you are. That's why I will not completely discount them going back to Spags or I can't pronounce his name. Is it Anarumo?
Lou
Anarumo.
Anarumo. Yeah, sure.
Yeah, here it is. But they both have connections to the Giants, and if they want to channel the past, those two guys are obvious. I would be shocked if they're not at least interviewed. what I hope we don't happen, what I hope doesn't happen, and it may be the best thing to do it anyways. I don't know, but I hope because we got a really early start on the coaching search because they fired Daboll, obviously. I hope we're not in one of those situations where we're waiting on somebody like after the Super Bowl again, or you know what I mean? Like they can't. That we're interviewing the guy for the first time during the championship game week because of the rules, and we're waiting on somebody who's. And again, if you get the right guy, that's all that matters. But I'd kind of like to get this wrapped up and not have to wait into February.
But Chris Shula could be that guy, though. The Rams.
All of these guys could be that.
But I'm saying is the Rams.
Daniel Jones goes to the Super Bowl. They could be waiting on Lou. I mean,
but exactly. But that's my point, though. Like, so if you start doing that, then you're eliminating some guys.
I know that. I know, and I so you're caught in a rock and a hard place. So, but personally, I'm going to state the obvious here. I don't want to wait that long. I'd like to get this wrapped up pretty quickly in January and get things settled on both the GM and the head coaching front. I hope we're not waiting on. I hope we're not, because we started so early. I hope we're not waiting until early February before this is all resolved. I hope that's not the case.
I would, yeah. No, boy, it's a tough one because I'm with you to a degree. But
no, I know, I get it.
But if those are the guys I want, I don't
exactly.
I don't want to pick somebody else just because I didn't want to wait.
I know, and I agree with you, but I don't want to wait either. So I don't know. I don't know how that comes into because, let's wrap this up over the weekend and hire Gruden.
Yeah, you know the funny thing is, outside
this isn't going to happen. I mean, he's been blacklisted. Do you think Gruden's ever going to be allowed to be hired again? I think the NFL has blacklisted him. That's my guess.
I also have to think. I don't know that is it even allowed? Like, could the Giant? And I don't know the rules to this right now. Could they hire Mike McCarthy right now?
Sure. Right.
I think you still have to go through an interview process because of the whole.
Oh, they've got to do the Rooney rule.
The Rooney rule. But I mean, are you able to like if I go and interview Leslie Frazier and Kafka technically counts and I interview him and then I interview Mike McCarthy. Could I hire them right now?
I don't think they would ever do that. But
no, I know. But I'm just wondering, are the league rules allowed?
As long as they do abide by the Rooney rule. There's probably
a weird rule. It's a weird rule only because when you know people mention the rule, don't you feel like shit when you're like, oh yeah, I'm going to be interviewed because I know.
Yeah, it's insulting. It's 2025. It's insulting. So yeah, I mean,
it's just. Well, I just feel bad for the guy who gets that interview, right? Like if you're interviewing Leslie Frazier, dear God, you pretty much know you're not hiring Leslie Frazier to be. He's 62 years old,
right?
He hasn't been a head coach in forever. You're not suddenly bringing him in. It's a weird thing to go. You're just checking a box. I feel so bad for people when it's just
insulting to the person that's being interviewed. To me, that's me.
Yeah.
But neither they're here nor there. All right, because we're running long. Yeah, we'll wrap. Do you want to talk about the Lions game at all, or no? We're basically.
Well, I mean, now let's do real quick. I mean, I think what I think is really interesting, not from I can't wait to see what happens, but just weird. Eric Gray suddenly comes out of nowhere to being like, okay, we're probably going to play him, and I'm like,
why?
You have Turbo Miller. And I don't want to hear people go, Turbo Miller must suck, and the Giants know that. Then why the fuck is he on your practice squad? Why do you? Those are guys you hope that you might be.
Turbo's got to be kind of pissed.
I would think, but nobody else is signing him either. So that, yeah. But let him play.
Say what you will about Turbo, he actually looked good in the preseason. Not running the ball, catching the ball. He was.
But let him play.
Yeah.
Give him a bone, for God's sakes, for doing all this. Eric Gray has done nothing. You drafted him and he's done nothing. He's been injured. Are you legitimately checking to see? This guy would have been cut if he wasn't injured.
Well, what's weird is he tore his meniscus. I didn't know that until this past week. I knew he had a knee injury. I didn't know what it was. He tore his meniscus, and they opened up the practice window. And he didn't practice. He hasn't. I don't think he's practiced until the last time he practiced was last year. So he's as rusty as can be. I mean, he might have had some snaps in the spring and OTAs or something, but he didn't take a snap during the summer. So he's as rusty as can be. And like you said, he doesn't have a track record. And here's Turbo, who is actually one of the highlights of the preseason. and now he's passed him on. It's weird.
Well, and
it's
again,
great.
you know what it does though. Again, it's one of talk about also not understanding. Right before I lose my train of thought, this is another draft pick. This is another draft pick. Is this the only reason why you're doing this? Because you drafted him and you're
I
just
think
trying
so,
to,
right?
I mean,
Right?
it seems very weird. But also at the same time, where the hell is Jaxson Dart?
Yeah.
Isn't he ready to be? Yeah, exactly. Like, but here comes Eric Gray out of nowhere. I know you've been carrying two backs, but you could just play Miller, by the way. But don't forget, you are paying Eric Gray. He's on the right. He's under contract. That's the only reason I could see. They're like, well, we're already paying him, so no reason to bring Miller up and give him a game check.
If they had a coach that knew he was returning and he was building for next year, I wonder if somebody like Azudu would be playing now over Van Roten just to get a read on him. Yeah, I don't know what's the problem with Azudu is he actually looked really good in the preseason and he got hurt again. Part of this is on the player. You can say that's just bad luck, but when you get hurt all the time, you're not available, and that's on you. And that was Zudu's problem. We were like, oh my God, Zudu actually looks pretty good. Maybe we got something. All of a sudden it's like, oh, he's hurt. And then we thought we'd see him again this year. Here we are, 6 games left. That's the one thing I'm gonna wrap up with this before we talked about Detroit is I hate being in this situation where we've got 6 games to go, and I feel like they're just these pain events that we have to get past. You know what I mean? It's kind of like we know we're going to lose to Detroit this weekend, and it's just going to be painful. And then we got 5 more games to go, and we'll probably lose to New England. Then we have the bye, and it's going to be like, well, can we beat the Commanders? Because Commanders, like you said, they're kind of falling apart a little bit. Dallas, the media's blowing smoke up Dallas's ass again. I don't know if you caught that.
No, of course.
Because I was in the
Raiders.
I was in the gym the other day, and it was all Cowboys, and it was like they were for 40 minutes. They were talking about the Cowboys, and I'm like, oh my God, here we go again. So,
if I had told you right when we were doing a season preview, if I had said to you at week 12, right, heading into week 12, Dallas would have 4 wins, Washington would have 3 wins, wouldn't you start to go, shit, we might be in pretty good shape here? I mean, you know what I mean? Washington, Dallas, 3 and 4, right? You'd be like, wow, okay. And then somehow we're still trailing those teams, and we've lost to both of them.
Has Washington only won 3 games?
Yeah, they've only won 3 games.
Holy crap.
We're one of them. Dallas has won 4. We're one of them. Dallas tied with Green Bay. By the way, if Green Bay just held their own goddamn shit the same way the Giants did, Dallas would have 2 wins, would be complete. I mean, they would be just gone. Green Bay would be in a much better position. Nope. They got really lucky, but Dallas has 4 and Green Bay has 3.
Well, I'm not joking. They were talking about Dallas for 40 minutes, and I was like, Jesus Christ. So,
beating a Raiders team that has less at wide receiver than we do.
Yeah. And the other thing, but while we're talking to other teams, I do want to. So every week, Buffalo. I still look at the standings in terms of offense, defense when I do my previews because I want to know where the teams are. And I'm like, wow, Detroit's top 5 on offense and defense. They're 5th on each. But I peeked up and I'm like, the Colts are number 1 on offense. And I'm like, so you mentioned earlier that I think one of the reasons why Daboll's gone is Daniel Jones. So they probably did say the quarterback's holding us back, and now Daniel's gone, and it gets back to what you were saying, that Daboll's offense has been all sort of like relying on the quarterback to improvise. That is not Daniel Jones. Daniel Jones can't improvise.
That's not his thing.
But Daniel Jones went to someplace else, and they've turned him into somebody who can at least manage the game. I suspect, again, this may be my anti-Daniel Jones bias, I suspect him getting out of New York mentally has helped him too, that he just couldn't handle the pressure. And that it's a perfect place for him to go because Indianapolis is about as media unintense as you can get. Unintense.
Well,
Not,
if you want to
um,
point, if you want to also include blame, this is the one I think actually you could turn the spotlight to Joe Schoen. And it doesn't matter that I agreed with Joe Schoen's comments when they were talking during Hard Knocks. But now looking back on it, now you see where maybe it wasn't so true with the situation that you had. Daniel Jones is doing well with I believe he throws, and I don't want to say the exact percentage, something like 67, 80, 70% of the time, it's his first read throw. He makes that throw. Daniel Jones has decent weapons in Indianapolis. They have a first
they can
round
run the
tight.
ball, and they can really
Well,
run the
hold on, I
ball.
haven't got there yet. They have
Yeah.
a first round tight end. They've got multiple wide receivers that we would want all of the wide receivers to be our wide receivers right now. And then you have
And even the tight end, and the tight end.
That's what I
and the
said. They have
running back,
they have a first round draft pick at
and
tight
their
end.
offensive line. We would
And
want all their offense.
a good offensive line, and then you have a superstar running back.
Right.
Joe Schoen's comments, I don't want a $160 million quarterback handing off to a
That's a good point.
$20,
That was
$30 million
bad
running
mouth.
back. But yet that's exactly what made Daniel Jones successful right now, is that you cannot just focus on Daniel Jones and whatever, because Jonathan Taylor is going to kill you. So they're 100% occupied, and Taylor can catch it. Taylor can run it. Taylor can block. That's everything that you probably needed to have to make Daniel Jones successful in Saquon Barkley. Again, I'm not for keeping Barkley, but my point is, when you argued that bit of it, that meant you thought Daniel Jones by himself would be able to do what he's doing. Indianapolis is proving that Daniel Jones can be sufficient when you have the rest of it. Don't make him have to create it. Let everybody else take some of that stuff. And it was really the Giants' success in 22 up through 9 games where teams didn't know, do I go after Jones? Do I have to go after Barkley? Either of them could run. He might throw it. After a while, they figured out the Giants' offense was way more simplistic than what they said. Indianapolis is not. And their offensive line and Jonathan Taylor make Daniel Jones 10 times better. That would be a stinging indictment on Joe Schoen, because if you believe that, then you should have gone and gotten other weapons to make Jones successful. And instead, you just go, let's get him a receiver and he could throw the ball. That was never Daniel Jones.
You actually make a really good point. If you want, we're going to make a. So I was making the argument that was a nail in the coffin for Daboll. It's actually a nail in the coffin too for Schoen because of what you just said. So this Colts are actually proving both of them wrong in similar ways, and so it's odd. So because you almost got the sense in Hard Knocks that Schoen was. The more I think about it, I still think that Daboll. I mean, you think that Saquon was the driving force behind this, and you may be correct, but I still get the sense that they were trying to convince somebody above them that Daniel Jones sucked, and it's like he wanted Jones to sink or swim on his own, and he sank on his own. And I don't want to relitigate his last half season here, but it was a disaster. And we've talked about the Germany game and all that crap, but they finally pulled the plug. But now it looks bad because the things that you just said, as Shane said, I'm not going to do this. The Colts did it and it's working. So it's just another. Anyways, I don't like talking about Daniel Jones anymore, but it's at this point, if he was playing like shit and the Colts were playing like shit, we wouldn't be even bringing it up. But the fact that they're where they're at right now is another. Again, if I'm Mara, even if I'm obtuse and I'm clueless, I'm still going, what the hell? I'm going like, you guys told me X and the opposite's happening.
Yeah.
And so
and Daniel Jones's flaws still, again, we don't want to be just talking Daniel Jones, but his flaws are still showing up even with Indianapolis. In fact, he's kind of reverted recently. He's kind of fumbled a number of times recently. He's thrown interceptions recently, but yet overall, no, you're fine, Optimus. Overall, he is he is working within the system that they have right now, enough so that they're pretty confident in where they're at. Now, I still think they're going to slide. I don't think you can rely on him. They're going to face some teams, especially they've got a couple of games with Houston coming up. With that pass rush is really going to expose Daniel. If he has to throw too much, that's where things are going to fall off. But if not, if they control the line of scrimmage, and that was always the key, if they control the line of scrimmage, Daniel Jones can be effective in what they're doing with the weapons that they have.
Yeah. Well, I would be nervous about re-signing him if I were the Colts.
I agree. Now, Optimus's thing that I put it up and you took it back down. That's fine.
Oh, I'm sorry.
No, it's fine. I wanted to get to that point. I think that's the other part with Daboll. Remember, Daboll's attitude, again, he carried an attitude of a guy that acted like he was a multi-Super Bowl winner as a head coach versus a guy that he coached a team that kind of got close to the Super Bowl as a coordinator,
right,
with a superstar quarterback that I think he's taking too much credit for that guy's development. And then came here and had one winning season, but only half the season. The second half of the season was losing and you won one playoff game. But where I thought his attitude really shone through was in the midst of all your shit falling apart. And it was. You win one stupid, meaningless game that you hated way more than I did. And what did he say in the interview afterwards? That's what you get when you have competent, not great, competent. That's like saying the rest of my quarterbacks are so incompetent. Luckily, I had Drew Lock to get us through this game. But you signed your fate right then, because they got you quarterbacks. They got you Russell Wilson. They got you Jameis Winston. They got you Jaxson Dart. What happened? Your offense continued. You won a couple of games, but they were Dart. Wilson did nothing. Right. Your defense falls apart. You're a shitty coach, and that proved through. But I think Joe Schoen's piece is going to come seeing success elsewhere, and his attitude and his comments about what he believed at the time was not incorrect, but it was incorrectly applied with the team that you still had. You didn't set them up to protect Daniel Jones and minimize what he had to do. You literally set something up to expose his every flaw, and it backfired.
Yeah, that's a good way to look at it, in a way they did. So the question is this: does Joe Schoen survive? I don't have a feel for this right now. I don't know. I don't know. And I don't know if he should or not. Right now, I'm leaning against, you know what? I don't think you've done well enough to maintain your job. I'm a little bit pissed at all of you. And so I kind of but I get the downside of blowing it all up again. But so you're going to you see it on BBI, you see posts going, the case for Joe Schoen, the case against Joe Schoen. And everybody who makes those posts, they make valid points. You can make a really good argument for keeping him. You can make a really good argument for getting rid of him. I don't know who's right or wrong. I don't know which way the Giants are leaning right now. And the one thing that has come up repeatedly, and I don't know if it's true, is there have been multiple reports that he's not safe, that a decision has not been made on him yet. And if that's accurate, I think that's a good thing. He shouldn't feel safe. But I don't know what would need to change in the next 6 weeks for that view to change, that he's not safe or he's not. You know what I mean? Like the Colts game. And again, I hate to bring it up. Why would the final 6 games should determine his fate one way or the other? I mean, at this point, you should determine his fate based on what you think he's done for the past 4 years, not the last 6 games. So I'm not really sure if that's a good thing or a bad thing overall. I think it's a good thing in the sense that I'm glad it's given that he's coming back, but shouldn't that decision have already been made in a way? Maybe you have a different view on that.
I said, you and I talked about this last week, I believe. I only wanted the game against Green Bay, game against Detroit, and game against New England. Those 3 games. Those are the only 3 games that matter to me if you're going to make any decisions on anybody going forward. Why? Because those 3 games were against teams that were winning teams.
Right.
Green Bay's a winning team. Detroit's a winning team. New England's winning its division right now. And they are the epitome of what you hope your team will be next year, the way they turned it around. After the bye, we get a bunch of teams like we just talked about. Dallas may or may not be trying to get into the bottom of the wild card chase. Dallas could be completely out of it pretty quickly here. They got some tough games coming up. So let's pump the brakes. They beat the Raiders. We get the Raiders, whose season is over. You've got Washington, whose season is over. And then you've got and then we got Minnesota.
Minnesota, that's it.
And Minnesota is falling apart because JJ McCarthy's not playing that well. Justin Jefferson is kind of pissed off. Things are not, for them, it's not looking that good. They're in a very tough division too. So I don't want those 4 games. I don't want the Raiders game, like go on the road and beat a shitty Raiders team and like, oh, you know what? Maybe Kafka's the guy. No, he's not the guy. He's not the guy. If he's not the guy against Detroit and he's not the guy against Green Bay, and I don't care that you play Jameis Winston, that's the reason why you have other quarterbacks on your team. If he's not the guy against those teams and against New England, then he's not the guy in the back half of the season when it's all over. So that's the same thing with Joe Schoen. I don't want anything later to matter for Joe Schoen. Your guys didn't show up. Abdul Carter had an issue, whatever it is during the week.
We didn't even discuss that. We should have gotten into that a little bit. But.
Yeah, and we've kind of gone long, so I want to keep it tight. Whether he slept, whether he didn't, there's also been rumors that he's been late to meetings and some other stuff. I'll say this. You posted a thing. Other people have talked about it. I was as vocal as anybody about wanting Abdul Carter drafted. I'm still there. I am unbelievably unhappy with what we've got from him so far. I watched a number of plays against Green Bay where he engages, he went down, and he didn't even get back up. He didn't even look like he was trying to get back up. I'm like, what are you doing? That is so unlike Giants backers of the past. LT, Banks, Andy Hedden, Byron Hunt. I mean, the list goes on and on. Guys get up. Even Matthias Kiwanuka would have gotten back up and tried. I was like, what are you doing?
But that's not the Abdul Carter we were seeing at Penn State, and that's not
in training camp,
but also early in the year. Again, he terrorized the Chargers. Yes. He had a really good game against Denver. I mean, there were games that early in the year. So that's part of the argument for getting rid of everybody, including Kafka, and bringing in somebody else that would just, a bit of a hard ass that will just get these guys. I think we're starting to learn there was a bit too much of a country club atmosphere with the Giants. So, and I think you and I believe that Shane Bowen, the players do not respect Shane Bowen at all. So I actually worked at an organization where I had really awesome bosses that were replaced by shitty bosses, and having a shitty boss causes discipline to change. People start to slack off. They start to cut corners. They'll do things because they don't respect the guy that they work for. And and that's true in, I think, sports too. So get these people away from, you wonder, and this is what you brought up before, are there players on this roster now that have been exposed to so much bad coaching? They're permanently scarred now. Is Dexter Lawrence ever going to be Dexter Lawrence again, or can we get him back to the way he was if he gets properly coached again and inspired by a coach? Thank God Andrew Thomas is still playing, and I worried about him. He, one of the unsung stories this year is Andrew Thomas is back to the way he was, and he's staying healthy. Again, knock on wood here, but he, there was a little bit of a fear that with all these injuries and stuff, he wasn't going to be the same player, or could he even stay healthy? He's been a rock for the Giants this year. So I think they need to bring somebody in that will just take charge. And you talked about this earlier, take charge of the locker room. And that's what I would look at with the coach too. So, but Abdul Carter, I would not write off at all. I know people are getting mad at me because I keep saying read size game reviews. And the reason is I want people to realize it's not just coming from me. I think people always think of the last game, and Abdul Carter has not been playing well lately. But for the bulk of the year, the overall story on him has been he's been flying around the football, and he's gotten incredibly unlucky with
penalties or just
penalties and things like that. And, again, there's been games where, again, I posted the stats. Someone posted it on Twitter last night. he's leading the league in pressures and stuff like that. He's just, it's just like, and then, but now what's bothering people, and it should, like you, is like the effort thing. And the thing, there's something clearly happened for them to bench him. I don't know if he fell asleep or not, but he was benched. But again, if you're going to bench somebody, it's like when they benched Deonte Banks last year. You're going to bench somebody, bench them for the game. Don't bench them
it's like the Cowboys. The Cowboys benched Pickens and CeeDee Lamb, and the story is basically they were out all night in Vegas. There was rumors that either Lamb or Pickens was throwing up in a restaurant at 7:00 in the morning on game day. They had been out all night long, so they benched him for like 2 series. I'm like, there you go. That'll tell a millionaire that he's.
I mean, you're a parent. I'm a parent. I mean, if you did that with a kid, that's like a joke. You know what I mean? It's like
sorry,
you're on timeout for 1 minute. You know?
Yeah, no TV between 6 and 6:15. Sorry.
Yeah, all right, Dad. I mean, Jesus Christ. I mean,
man, you're such a hard ass.
I know it sounds like we're talking down to the players, but you're basically dealing with grown-up children.
Yeah, of course.
So
and when you have children running it, which clearly that's what was happening. I mean, you knew it. It's not guessing at this point. It's not just putting your own, like my own sense of opinion. It's actually painfully obvious the way that Daboll behaved with Dart. That sort of, it's not a matter of this is my quarterback. It's the fact that you're the head coach and you're like, I love you, and you're everything was about Dart. You're running into the medical tent. You literally showed that you have zero control over what's going on, zero control over yourself. It's embarrassing. We became the embarrassment of the NFL on that night. In a time in which we are winning a game, you look like a jackass. Scatterboo doing it, you can understand. That dude is, he's one slice of bread short of a loaf.
Well, what do you think about the thing with Scatterboo? So the initial reaction, and I saw your comments, was, what is he doing? But then it comes out the week that was a Giants sanctioned
arranged
event, and they knew it was choreographed. That's weird too.
I get it. I get what people are saying. I even get what Scatterboo's saying. But here's my problem with that is you are injured. It doesn't take much if you just kind of step the wrong way. Now, again, that could happen anywhere. I get it. But it might be choreographed, but I've seen you. You don't seem to be able to kind of slow yourself down. How do you know you might get a little too active?
All right. So again, assume that Scatterboo, again, if you're his father, and I know his father and mother are pretty active on social media, so they actually might be watching.
Yes.
This is not meant as an insult towards your son.
Absolutely not. No.
I love your son. I love his attitude. I think he's a breath of fresh air. But as a parent, I don't put that on Scatterboo.
No, it's on the Giants.
That was a Giants sanctioned event, and they were helped to arrange that. That's kind of where I'm getting at, John. It's like,
well, look who was with him.
Just part of the circus atmosphere that we were talking about. You know what I mean? It's not. Can we be a football team that tries to win football games instead of putting social media posts on the Giants players' favorite movies and rap groups, and then sanction events with the WWE or whatever it was.
There's a long history of the NFL and wrestling, and a history with the Giants. Carl Banks was involved in some things. LT wrestled at WrestleMania.
Yeah, the Giants weren't happy with LT wrestling. Remember that?
But they were winning organization at the time.
Right.
Like you're a joke of an organization. My problem was more like it's Scatterboo. It's Abdul Carter throwing a belt over his shoulder. I don't want you comfortable being like celebrating and shit while you've been a losing team. This is the thing I have a problem with Dexter Lawrence. You're a good player, but you're not a great player this year. You have not played great. You are comfortable now with losing. You could say you're not, but you are. And I don't like that. These guys are so accustomed. And I know it's a different world. I know I'm the old guy, get off my lawn kind of thing in this scenario. But it's embarrassing that we're bad and you're bringing attention to yourself elsewhere. People are like, oh yeah, as an individual. And Cam Scatterboo is also the guy that when he got, I think, 1,000 followers on Twitch, he shotgunned a drink out of his game-worn shoe. Gotta love that guy for a lot of reasons, but I'll love it a lot more when we're winning.
Yeah, optimist. I'm going to be more optimistic than you. Yeah, I do think they have lead. I think Dart will become that leader and is becoming that leader. I think Scatterbo can actually become a leader, believe it or not. I do think they're capable. They've got people that can become leaders. What they don't have is they need coaches that can. You got to have. Again, I use a bad analogy. You got to have the parent. You got to have the adult in the room that guides all of this. And somebody had a really good post on BP. I wish I could remember who posted what, but they made a really good post about how previous GMs were considered failures until they got a good coach and started working with a good coach. And now the perception of those GMs is completely different. Again, I'm not trying to defend Joe Schoen here, but you'd be amazed if you get somebody who can just come in and change the culture and just lead the team from the right way. Look, if Sean Payton was here, this team would be completely different right now.
Oh, sure.
If McVay was here, this team would be completely different right now. In coaching, man, if Dan Campbell was, I've got my issues with Dan Campbell. I think he's a little too out there.
A little bit,
especially in the playoffs, but he's a culture changer. So there are guys that if we have, that's why it's kind of painful. It's going to be more painful next week that we kept Daboll and let Vrabel go someplace. And there are a lot of people that were saying, why are you guys so high on Vrabel? His record in Tennessee isn't that good. Because when you watch Tennessee play, and even with what they were encumbered with at quarterback, the quarterback that they had, but when you watch Tennessee play, when you watch Tennessee go into Baltimore when Baltimore was really good and
they shut them down
shit out of Baltimore, you were like, man, this is the kind of coach I want on my team.
There's two things I want to say to that. We will keep it a little bit. Well, we'll go.
Yeah, we'll
keep it a little bit tight. But there's two things about culture that I think is really important.
We're not going to keep it. We're at 1 hour and 42 minutes.
Listen, just
all right.
The one thing about culture that I think people keep forgetting when they keep talking about, oh, so-and-so, and they lose in the playoffs, I will be effing happy if we go to the playoffs 4, 5, 6 years in a row. I might be pissed later on that we didn't win or we didn't move to the Super Bowl, but do you know how let's put it this way. We're about to be the first team eliminated this year. Okay. So that's how exciting we are right now.
Our coach we're the first to obviously fire the coach.
Yeah,
right? It wasn't the guy in Miami, it was us.
This is how exciting we've been. When you go 2-8, 2-8, 2-8 for 3 straight years to start it, and your other big thing is you went 9-7-1, and we're all excited about that. But it was all losing seasons before that until 2016. Give me a coach that wins regularly, right? Give me a coach that wins regularly. But here's another thing about culture, and this is where you could tell things are different. Talent is one thing, as we know, right? The Giants actually have talent. There are talented players on this team. Players that would play starting and big-time roles for other teams. Brian Burns, Abdul Carter would be a guy. Kayvon Thibodeau, certainly other teams wanted him. He would be playing for other teams. Malik Neighbors for sure. Jaxson Dart would definitely be wanted by other teams.
They beat the Eagles. They look at the Chargers game. They should have beaten Denver. They should have beaten Green Bay.
So talent is one thing. But look at Detroit. They lost all of their main coordinators this offseason.
Yep.
Ben Johnson goes to be a head coach. Aaron Glenn goes to be a head coach. Dan Campbell is like getting different guys all around, bringing guys in. They are still a dominant team. Yes, he takes chances, but guess what? Those are the same chances he took when he had Ben Johnson and Aaron Glenn. He's the same guy. The culture that they've built, though, says we expect to be tough. We expect to be they're innovative on offense. They're not going to do things just because that's the way other teams do it. They're going to be attacking. That's their plan. That's what he lives by. What are the Giants under Daboll and under Schoen? What can you say? Cy brings it up all the time. What are you?
What are you?
And that's what they need to find out. And it starts with the head coach. No team is identified by their GM. None.
Yeah.
It's your head coach is who you're identified by. This offseason is probably the biggest one ever because you have a quarterback, essentially. It's who you get as coach is going to be unbelievable.
Yeah, my last comment is going to be this is my identity with the Giants, when I have my fondest memories of them, even when they were bad, was when the defense would just keep them in games. They have had a horrific series of defensive coordinators here going back more than 10 years now. And part of that, and to me, that's a huge problem. I mentioned it this week on BBI. I said, we focused on the GMs, we focused on the head coaches, but man, they have had a horrible run of defensive coordinators. And until they get that defense fixed, I feel as a Giants fan with DNA in my blood about defense, they got to get the defense coached up. So whoever the head coach is, if he's a defensive guy, this will kind of take care of itself. They got to get somebody in here who can coach defense, because I am done with these. I mean, this goes back to Patrick Graham. This goes back to, remember Patrick Graham's defenses would collapse all the time. But I mean, we listed the names the Betchers of the world. I mean, all these guys have been clowns that we've had as defensive coordinators. I mean, even Perry Fuel wasn't a good defensive coordinator, even though they won a Super Bowl with them. We just have not had good defensive coordinators other than Spags in a long time. And I don't know why. I don't know. It keeps happening. So people have a fond memory of Wink. No, Wink was a bottom-ranked defensive coordinator here. He wasn't in Baltimore, but he was here, and now he's out of the NFL. So that's why the Wink talk always pisses me off. I'm like, he was here 2 years. He was terrible here.
And that's another Joe Schoen piece that you could kind of point to, right? When you go and get players, which you did, when you go and get players specific to the defensive coordinators wanting,
right?
We brought in Jihadi Ward. You're going with more of that two defensive line. We're going with the bigger edge guys. When you bring in a Carrick, you go and get Deontay Banks to play his defense. Then you get rid of him, and you bring in a guy who was running somebody else's defense. He wasn't running his own. He was running Vrabel's defense. And you come in, and he's now running a version, I think, of Wink's. It's almost like literally you took Friday the 13th and you said, you know what we're going to do? We're going to make this PG-13. Okay, great. Yeah. So you just watered down a shitty thing that was already there. So whatever they do, cohesion is a big part of what needs to happen. The Giants have been very good at pieces, but if they don't work together, whatever you're going to do, it's got to be a cohesive move forward. Last thing on the Lions game, I think the Giants are going to put up points. I think Jameis Winston's going to give us a Jameis Winston experience. There's going to be some great throws. You're going to wonder what the hell just happened. I swear to God, if Jalen Hyatt if you put him in and make him a focal point again, I can't say I won't watch games because that never happens. But holy shit, I will legitimately I'll say this, and it's going to sound, I'll be rooting for him to tear a fucking hamstring. Can't stand that guy.
But remember, we thought because they had a relationship that Jameis and Hyatt might do something. And in the key moment in the game, Jameis went to Hyatt and we saw what happened. So
Jameis found out that Hyatt did what we all expect him to do, the wrong thing.
Yeah. So, I mean, there it goes. So, I mean, what did we say before last week's game? We said everything's lined up for Hyatt to do something. And
there you go. And
there you go. I mean, so at this point, but little Jordan Humphrey's in Denver right now. So,
well, I mean, and you've got Bo Collins he's injured and out and gone. At this point, Isaiah Hodgins, I mean, here you go. We're like, yay, Hodgins. Please, I thank God he came in. He did what he did. But if he's on our team next year, that might tell you that once again, we didn't go again. We didn't get any guys. He really shouldn't be at this point. I mean, he could be number 5, but he's very limited. I mean, he's not a big special teamer. Yeah. He's not fast.
Well, I keep coming back to 2023 when he was given 17 games and he shit the bed. So
and it's not a negative on him.
No,
he has maxed out. He has maxed out what he could do. The fact that he walked in and he had 5 for 53 and
something like
you
that.
Look for him on third down,
which
in very tough situations.
Like 50-yard receiving game now. It's like, yay!
We're like, oh my God, did you see our passing game? It was amazing.
Look, he could be the leading receiver again in Detroit. So I mean, but
for
again,
sure.
I agree with you.
Being back, maybe.
I agree with you. Giants fans should not be. And I know Cy has already written about this. About he would have him on the roster again next year. I tend to agree with you. It's a better sign if he's on the practice squad next year than he's on the
Right.
53 next year. I think he's a nice story, but he doesn't scare anybody. But he's reliable. You throw him the football, he's going to catch it.
Right. I would like to see. I'd like to see Marcus Bowe get some playing time, because the Giants have a big decision to make. That's another thing to look in this game.
On IR? Bowe isn't a
Marcus Bowe's on IR.
Yeah,
he shouldn't be on IR. When did he go on IR?
Wait a minute, let me check. I think they put him on IR, didn't they?
Wow,
yeah, he's on IR. He's on injured reserve. He got hurt a while.
When did we put it? Fuck, I'm sorry about that. Well, then forget it.
No, our receivers got really thin when before we got Hodgins. We were down to four wide receivers.
No. Who are you talking about? I'm talking about Marcus Bowe, the offensive lineman. Did we?
I think I'm Bo Collins. I thought you were talking about
Marcus Bowe. Marcus Bowe. I was like, wait, what? When did he get hurt?
Bo Collins. I thought we were talking wide receivers. Sorry.
No. I want to see Marcus Bowe get some playing time, because you got a huge decision coming up about whether or not you're going to try to offer Illuminor a contract for next year, and I kind of hope they don't.
I wouldn't do it,
because he's going to want tackle money, and the Giants really need to kind of move him. I mean, he's fine, but I don't want to spend that kind of money. You're tight already. I mean, we're middle of the pack cap wise, but we got to get rid of some guys to make more space. Right. And some of the guys eating up cap space are not that great. I don't want to pay a ton for Illuminor if I don't have to. So I'd really like to see Bowe get some playing time.
Right. And I know there have been people who have said, and this narrative won't go away, that Bowe's a better guard than tackle. I don't agree with that. I think people say his arms aren't ideal, therefore he's a guard. I think he is a very athletic lineman who plays bigger than his size and can mirror with anybody. But he's not a mauler at guard. So I'd rather have him. There was a game review that Cy did recently where Bowe played right tackle, and he said he said there was no difference in Bowe and Illuminor.
Yeah.
Even though Bowe's a rookie, remember. And he actually said he thought Bowe might even have played a little bit better. I would let one of the reasons the Giants are in bad cap situation is they keep overpaying for mediocrity to maybe decent players. And Illuminor is a decent player, but he's not. And he's one of these guys that could fall off a cliff at some point. He's been around a while. And so I would go with the young guy, and I would spend the money on getting a guard that would maul people inside, that we were hoping Evan Neal would be, and just maul. The way the NFL has changed now is that the defensive tackles in the NFL have become really big and really athletic. And the best rushing teams right now have really big physical interior linemen. I want two big guards in the middle, and I want athletic tackles. And they've got one man, Thomas, and I think Marcus Bowe is an athletic tackle, and I think they were fine with them. They would need to get somebody to replace Hudson, because Hudson, unless he has some sort of come to Jesus moment, Hudson's can't handle backup swing tackle. But I would focus my resources on changing. I think Runyon's not ideal, and they got to move on from Van Roten. So I would spend more on guard, and I would draft a guard. I would get a free agent guard, and I would draft a guard, and that's where I would do. But I agree with you. Look, if they resign Illuminor, I won't be really upset.
No, it won't be. It's going to be expensive. That's the problem.
It's going to be expensive, and I wouldn't do it. So.
And Hudson already had his exorcist moment, so I guess coming to Jesus would be the next step. So that being said, take it for what it is. Expect the Lions to put up a lot. Hey, listen, if they beat the Lions, we'll come on here and be like,
"Oh yeah, that'd be great."
Maybe.
If the Lions lose, the Lions are in serious trouble. That's the problem too. Lions have to win this game.
One last thing that I wanted to say about coaches, though, to keep an eye on. And it's come up already in chat. Buffalo is the place to watch right at the moment. If they struggle, I could see them moving on from McDermott.
Yeah,
I could see them moving on from him. I could also see Daboll going back to Buffalo. Maybe not as the head coach, but don't discount that either. But I could see him going back to Buffalo in the offseason. But if they fire McDermott, and if Joe Schoen does have a sort of say, you got to wonder if that's going to be a pull. They have a connection. He knows him. That, is that where he's going to look? Again, McDermott's had way more success than any coach that we've had, but I'm not sure that I want to. I think I would rather have McCarthy with a proven. He's won changing guys out. He's won with different organizations. I don't want a guy who's been able to get by because he has a superstar quarterback.
Well, that's the other problem too with their offensive coordinator who's been linked to the Giants too. Do you want another Buffalo offensive coordinator who you wonder if the success is becoming because of who he has at quarterback rather than who and what he is?
And he has not been. And the Bills' offensive coordinator is under fire right now. They looked very bad with some of the things they chose to do against Houston, knowing that they exposed. They really got away from what made sense in a number of spots. So anyway, keep an eye on that.
I hope the Miras do understand that. Again, this doesn't mean that it's the right or the wrong decision, but I wonder if they're tuned into there are some coaching candidates that just will not fly with the fan base. And I think anything from Buffalo right now, it's like us with Alabama offensive linemen. The thing is with Buffalo right now, I think Giant fans are kind of done with looking for things from Buffalo right now. We'd rather go someplace else than a Buffalo retread.
Agreed. Yeah. So that being said, we'll end it here. I'm not sure, if we'll have one right at the beginning of next week following this game, which is before Thanksgiving, or if we'll do it after. But just in case, happy Thanksgiving to everybody out there. Hope you enjoy, have some fun with that. But let's just watch the games for what they are. Try not to get too upset. I can definitely tell things have changed for me because I usually get really pissed, and now I'm just like, I was expecting that.
6 games left. 6.
There you go. So we got a lot of things to look forward to. So let's see some of the young guys. Abdul Carter, we need to see play well. Cordell Flott needs to make a case for himself if he wants a contract to be here next year. So those are things to watch, and let's see what happens.
Andrew Phillips, how does he deal with his benching? Andrew Phillips got benched.
That was interesting too.
Yeah.
And this is the Eric Gray game.
Well, about Kafka, I'm not lobbying for him, but they're benching people now. So the only problem is I would like to see them, like, if they're going to bench somebody, don't make it for a series. Bench them for a game. Make it count. So anyway, sorry.
Yeah, exactly. No, you got it. So with that being said, like, subscribe. I really appreciate it. And we'll be back with you again real soon. And happy Thanksgiving.